Hey there, guys. Alright, today we are back with some more History Matters. I'm in a very History Matters kind of mood lately, so we're watching this one. This is Why Did France Leave NATO? A short animated documentary. Now I believe they left during Charles de Gaulle's, um, presidency in the 60s, I want to say. I think that's when they left. But did they rejoin? I thought they're, still in it. Or maybe they're still in it technically, but also not. I don't know. I don't really pay attention. I don't know. But before we dive in, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. I would love if you join the Discord and followed me over at Twitch. Okay, that's out of the way. Let's go ahead and get the answer to this fucking question.
The Cold War is often seen as two united sides facing off in an ideological battle
Stop existing. Uno reverse.
for the future. Yet, as many of you will have guessed, this wasn't always the case, and both sides had their own more rebellious members. In the case of the West, this was France and their withdrawal from
Of course, it's the fucking French.
NATO in 1966 at the height of the Cold War is often discussed as an example of this. This
Yeah, it was de Gaulle.
course of action seems like it wouldn't have been a good idea at this point, and thus raises the question, why? Why did France withdraw from NATO? So, just to make it clear, despite what's often discussed, France didn't actually withdraw from NATO entirely, but from its unified command structure.
Oh. Okay, I knew they were still NATO, I guess.
It was still fully committed to defending other NATO members in the case of war, and the command structure it had just left was created to lead and coordinate NATO's many militaries in the event of such a war. At its head was the Supreme Allied Commander, who could be from any of NATO's member states, so long as that member state began with a U and ended with United States of America.
I saw that one coming, but it's still funny.
Second in command was the Deputy Allied Commander, who could also be from any NATO country, but in reality, just Britain. This upset French President Charles de Gaulle, who felt that it would be nice if a Frenchman could gain the position at least once. And so, in 1966, he withdrew French forces from NATO's unified command structure. This wasn't just done for the sake of pride, but because de Gaulle wanted to ensure French strategic independence. He and many in the military were concerned that France would become reliant on NATO for operational planning and thus would no longer be self-reliant. For France's budding nuclear arsenal, this meant zero collaboration in terms of joint nuclear strategy with Britain and America. And in terms of conventional forces, France's leadership wanted the French army to be totally independent in terms of tactics, procurement and policy. There were also concerns about placing French troops under the command of non-French leaders and how they would be used. This concern wasn't exactly new either, and was the reason that the French had withdrawn their navy from the unified command structure in the previous decade. This all culminated in a small diplomatic row with the USA. When leaving NATO's command structure, de Gaulle also ordered all foreign troops out of France. President Johnson saw this coming, and when de Gaulle made the formal request for all American troops to depart France, his government's response was, does that include those in the cemeteries as well?
Yep. Okay. I knew. Alright. Yep.
Furthermore, France also banned the housing of American nuclear weapons on its soil. Importantly, these changes were incredibly popular with the French people, which is why no French leaders changed their arrangement for the rest of the century. Now, this move wasn't France's first move towards leaving NATO altogether. In fact, de Gaulle had signed a secret agreement with the United States promising that France would rejoin the unified command structure in the event of a Soviet invasion. And whilst many NATO members were completely outraged at the French move, the American response was one of resigned disagreement. In their eyes, NATO did not need France in it to survive, and the Johnson administration was convinced that it would only be
when I see that "you'll be back" thing, I always think of the Hamilton fucking King George. You'll be back. Soon you'll see.
5 or 10 years until France rejoined, although they'd have to wait slightly longer than that. I hope you enjoyed this episode and thank you for watching.
So they are back into the unified command structure, right? As of 2009, was that what they were saying there right at the end? When I was distracted by my own brain. Anyways, yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I think this was one of their weaker short animated documentaries. Blasphemy, I know. Still really good, though. Still really good. Except, not as good as the, I don't think it's as good as the last one we watched. I can't remember what the last one we watched was, but I remember that one being better. Yeah, it's still good. But it's not like the most exciting of questions, you know? Why did France leave NATO? They got butthurt. And I mean, the French do have logical reasoning as to why they didn't want to be a part of it. Like, can't fault them for those beliefs, especially like, you know, after World War II. You feel like you're getting shafted by the guy that joined in late, even though he did supply a lot of the weaponry to both to the Allies. And then you've got the other people, the British, who were in it from the beginning, but did not suffer like the French mainland suffered, right? And so like there's reasonable saltiness. Like the saltiness there is reasonable. It's kind of like, hey, yo, and also I'm going to side with France on this actually now that I'm thinking about it more. If a war were to break out between the Soviets, between the communists and the capitalists at that point in time, France was in extreme danger of having their lands occupied again. Now, I do personally think that the war wouldn't be a clean sweep for either side. I think it would be absolutely brutal slaughter. I do think Russia would have successes in the beginning, and I think then, like, I don't think France would get conquered. I think France would be like the kind of a similar World War I-ish situation where they're kind of stalemating on the French side of things. Because I don't think Germany would have been troops in Germany. I don't think Germany would have been able to hold off. West Germany would have been able to hold off. But yeah, France was essentially at risk of, and it's like, hey, if between the three of us, between the three big guys here, USA, Britain, and France, between the three of them, who is the most at risk of losing their fucking country? And the French were. The French were without a doubt. And so it's like, kind of does feel like they should have been given more, you know? More of a say, more authority, or like, at the very least, as de Gaulle was kind of saying, or at least what the French were kind of saying, is like, hey, it would be nice if the second in command or whatever of NATO forces wasn't always a British man. It would be nice if he was a French man now and then, right? You can understand. Like, on a wider scale, I understand why USA should be the supreme commander of NATO forces, because just of the United States' capability as a logistical superpower. There is no one in the world that can compare to the United States on its ability to manage logistics on a global scale. No one's close yet. No one has come close. Like the British, I think right now in the modern day, the British and the French are the closest, and they still cannot do what the United States can do on a global scale and divert its forces on a global scale as effectively. But, yeah. That was Why Did France Leave NATO? A short animated documentary. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.